Thank you for having me, Alishia.
The kind of tone we're starting this trading week off with today. What are your overall expectations for the week ahead?
Well, I think we had that very, very sharp rally. We flatlined a little bit in the last few weeks, but I expect we're going to push on a little bit higher again. I think when you're at the bottom of the new trading range, we've got about 10% of upside within this trading range. So I remain constructive overall.
Well, looking at the activity that we saw last week, I mean, local investors have been pretty active on Safaricom in particular. We've got 550 remaining underwritten as the price with buy-side interest at this stage of the game. Full year results are what now? About a month away, and a lot of expectations are that we're going to see a pretty good performance being put on by Safaricom. What are you anticipating out of these full year results?
Well, I think I'm expecting more acceleration. At the 6-month mark, they made 16.5 cents. You saw tremendous growth in data and in M-Pesa. I expect that growth to follow through. And I think the results announcement in May will be a little bit like the penny dropping about these new hyper growth curves on the internet side and on the data side. So I'm pretty bullish. I think we're going to move higher price-wise to around 610. And I think, you know, the market continues to underestimate these new revenue growth curves.
Well, having said that, but considering that we've got the prospective arrival of Barty in this playing field as well, I mean, what's your outlook in terms of Safaricom's ability to sustain the kind of growth we have gotten used to?
Well, I think they've got a clear first mover advantage. They've aggregated the numbers in Kenya. But I think for the first time, you're going to see a serious competitor on the scene. And I think that's going to be Barty, obviously. So I'm very bullish about Barty's arrival, but I think Barty might go after the lower hanging fruit. And Safaricom really is not low hanging fruit in its Zain Africa stable. So I think they're going to play with Safaricom, but they're not going to get irrational like we saw Zain a few years back, when really they tipped the whole thing upside down.
Well, Aly-Khan, today we're going to be running through quite a few counters, well, as many as we can possibly run through, just to kind of get a sense of where the market is playing at the moment. We've had TPS Serena trading at around 63.50. It's rallied 25% post its announcement of its full year results. And of course, that cautionary announcement saying that it's going to see this potential reversing in on the Kampala Serena. Just how much more room does this counter have to run here?
Well, I think it's got probably another 10%. There's probably very little downside. I can't see it going below 60. I think the performance they put in 2009, when do recall we were bouncing, we were not at the peak of tourism in Kenya, was really quite tremendous. And I think a lot of investors will be looking ahead and saying, hey, hang on a minute, if tourism really fires, what kind of profits can these folks make? So I'm bullish about TPS, well managed, operationally sound. I think 60 is an underwritten price. I'd look for a move towards 70. And I think you'll also see more reversing in. Probably Polana, the Serena Polana in Maputo must be next on the block as well.
Well, what's interesting is that in that context, we've got some pullback being experienced on KQ. I mean, it's sitting 10% off its 12-month high, and that ahead of what's anticipated to be strong turnaround results as well. So how are you viewing KQ in this context?
It's a very interesting chart. It's a very interesting fundamental story. The rally started below 20. We're now around 60. We peaked around 10% higher at about 66, 67. The issue with KQ is because of this very high beta turnaround that's coming our way, it's difficult to model exactly the magnitude of that bounce. I'm in the range of 6 shillings to 8 shillings. I think if you get 8, you get a move towards 72 and then 85. If you're nearer 6, you probably hang around here. Downside I see is limited, but I think investors have to be a little bit wary until we see those numbers.
Well, talking about numbers out of CFC Stanbic this morning, have you had a chance to glaze over them and enough time to give us some interpretation of them?
Well, I think CFC Stanbic, it's a story, post-merger story. There were, last year and the year before was really getting all the jigsaw pieces in place. The results were impaired by the NSC portfolio, where they took quite a hard mark, which was, I think, worth about 550 million shillings, which really tipped them into a negative EPS situation. I think as an investor, you've got to look through all that noise. A lot of that portfolio will be being repaired in this first quarter, and I think there's a very powerful story underneath it all. But initially, the knee-jerk reaction will be to look at these results and say, you know, hang on a second, what happened? But it's all to do with the NSE portfolio markdown. Of
course, this is all coming to the fore in a very interesting climate where we've got, of course, the Central Bank of Kenya having placed extreme pressure on these banks to lower their interest rates to get the lending arm of the economy going again. Barclays certainly making that interesting move last week, lowering its lending rates by 200 basis points. That should well start spicing up things in the sector as we move forward now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Adan Mohammed showed that his antennae are fully working. The rest of the bankers, you might well ask, why were they not ahead of the curve instead of being behind it? This was a win-win for Barclays to cut ahead of everybody else. And really, the interest rate curve is going one way, and it's going at such speed that all the banks are going to have to fall into line. I think the really bullish development for the Kenyan market for asset prices is when we get rates below 10%. I think that might well happen this year because the rates are falling away at a speed which is purely breathtaking. Overnight rates are below 3%, short-term money, interbank money is below 5%. I mean, the whole system is awash with liquidity. Yeah. If you're looking at boats being floated, this is the rising tide.
What do you see this move doing for Barclays' share price itself?
Yes, interesting question. It trades at about a P, trailing P of just below 12. 55 has been resistance for a very long time. I think we're just about to pierce it, and I'm looking for a price of 60. I think Barclays, is by getting ahead of the game, can now start to increase its loan book ahead of its other competitors, and I expect the price to actually perform very well. Do recall they did very well in, they played excellent defense through 2009. I think in 2010 you'll see a more expansive Barclays Bank Kenya.
Well, KCB also attracting quite a bit of attention. Some saying that it looks set to test 24 shillings, which has been its resistance point for so long now. I mean, what's your view on that counter? Because I've been reading through some of your notes and you're emphasizing that a re-rating to 14 PE for the big caps is not unreasonable given the stronger GDP headwinds that lie ahead.
Well, you're seeing a lot more interest in the big cap banking stocks. The demand is outweighing supply. I think equities spiked 50 cents this morning. Demand is about 3 to 4 times what the supply is available. And you tend to get this pause as buyers look and see the market, read the tape, and then finally decide they've got to push their prices up. I think we're in that point with the big cap stocks. With regard to KCB, 24 has held it for more than 18 months. It will be an important point for it to cross that. And you're seeing that across all the big caps. 55 was the limit for Barclays. We're testing it. 24 we're testing. Standard Chartered looks good for over 220. So it looks really bullish. And this sector, the banking sector, really was the laggard at the stock market. So I think it will be a bullish development for the bourse as a whole if we can get this motoring as well.